I see those uniforms on the same field, I'm going to be tricked for a couple plays like this is a big deal. I got to watch this because I would never miss a USC Notre Dame game in the past, especially when they're at the Coliseum and it has that certain look to it. Now that Notre Dame's changed the turf out, that will trigger my mind to, oh yeah, this is 2021. And really, this doesn't mean a whole lot. But still, USC and Notre Dame, my goodness, it just doesn't get any better than that. It is the greatest college football rivalry from a cross-sectional national standpoint.
It certainly is. And, I've been talking to people who follow Notre Dame in recent days, and we've been going over the history of the rivalry. And let's remember, this game was not played last year in the pandemic, first time since World War II that this game wasn't played. So that alone gives this game a little bit of spice, just because we realize what we missed last year. But of course, in a larger context, this rivalry has a quarter of a century or thereabouts. It's been very rare over the past 25 years when both USC and Notre Dame have been really good at the same time. It's been a struggle for that. When Pete Carroll had it going, Notre Dame was down. Brian Kelly's had it going. USC's been down. Lou Holtz had it going in the 90s. USC went through a period of struggle as well. I mean, like Lou Holtz against John Robinson in the early to mid 1990s was the last time you could look at a USC Notre Dame rivalry and say, it was a period when both programs, were in relatively good shape. Obviously, the 2005 game when you had Notre Dame with a really good team under Charlie Weiss before his career went downward, that's a moment in time. But in terms of sustaining a several year period, like a cluster of years in which both teams have been really good, we haven't had that really for a quarter of a century. So, it really just magnifies the need for USC to find the right coach, because Brian Kelly, I think he's going to stay at Notre Dame for the long haul. We keep hearing rumors about the NFL, like New York Giants rumors have cropped up at various times over the past few years. But come on, would you rather coach the New York Giants or Notre Dame? I mean, I think that's a pretty clear decision. So if USC gets the right coach, Mark, this rivalry could instantly ignite once again. And I think as we approach this 2021 game, that's really the kind of the storyline that's hovering over this game, is that can USC make this rivalry count for something on a national level the way we all remember it from the 60s, the 70s, and the 1980s. It's fascinating just as a historical point, Mark. Is so much college football discussion over the years has flown toward the 10-year war, Woody versus Bo, Ohio State, Michigan. And that's deserved. I'm not hinting or implying that it shouldn't be deserved, but you don't hear a fraction of the discussion about John McKay against Ara Parseghian. You don't hear that rivalry talked about 11 games, whereas Woody versus Bo was 10 games, occupied the same basic period in college football history. The games had just as much national significance, if not more. They both teams denied each other national titles. USC denied Era a national championship in 1964, and then in 1969, Era and Notre Dame tied USC, and that denied the Trojans a national title because that was their only non-win of the season. They were unbeaten. They had that one tie, so they finished third behind Texas and Arkansas, who played that memorable game. So you had so many incredible moments during that 11-year run, and yet we don't hear McKay Parseghian talked about nearly as often among college football historians, television personalities as Woody versus Bo. I think it's important to note that as we approach another USC Notre Dame game.
It's a great point that you make, and if I remember the years on Parseghian, I think he was at Notre Dame from 64 to 74, something in that range. And of course, McKay went to Tampa Bay. He went to the Buccaneers for their inaugural season in 1976. So McKay was there through 75. Yeah, they're very different rivalries in that, as I set up the question, USC and Notre Dame, unlike any other rivalry, because typically rivals play within the same state or in bordering states, or typically in the same conference. We've got some exceptions between the SEC and the ACC, but again, it's a regional rivalry: Georgia, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, etc. The one cachet to the Ohio State Michigan was there was more of a tangible measurement of, okay, the winner, these two programs own the Big Ten. The winner of this is going to the Rose Bowl, and the Rose Bowl was on the line every year for 11 or 12 consecutive years that spanned the entire 10-year war, of course. So that was more of a tangible aspect to that. And certainly the storyline of Woody being Bo's mentor and coaching over Bo before Schembechler took the Michigan job and upset a #1 Ohio State team. But yeah, two fascinating rivalries. And you make a great point about Parsegian against John McKay, two of the great all-time coaches in college football history.